Welcome to Conversations with Klana, made for the modern woman who wants to raise her self-esteem, increase her satisfaction, and build happy and loving relationships with herself and others. More and more, women feel they have lost their spark and the connection to themselves and miss deep intimacy in their lives. Rather than accept a life that doesn't shine, they want to change to one that does. Join the conversation each week when Klana and her guests explore practical ways and positive solutions to living a new, authentic life based on self-love, connection, harmony, and joy. Now, here is your host, transformation catalyst, author, and speaker, Klana.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Klana. And please welcome today Karen Solomon, the author of Sexy, Sassy, and Starting Over. As a relationship and sex coach, she teaches the keys to confidence from the bedroom to the boardroom and inspires her clients to create their lives congruent with their deepest needs and desires. Her communication style is bold and edgy, and she seeks to empower both men and women to be their authentic, unadulterated selves. She integrates her foundation as a credentialed teacher, I hope I said that right, with over 2 decades providing image makeovers and relationship coaching for men and women to serve her clients. Her passion, insight, and genuine desire to serve, combined with being direct, compassionate, and relatable, leave her clients and online community laughing and loving themselves. Welcome again, dear Karen. I'm thrilled to have you here on my show.
I'm looking forward to see where we go with this.
Me too.
I got 2 powerful women. Here we go. Thank you. So much. Pleasure to be here, Klana.
Karen, what brought you to this job? Or to doing what you are doing?
I'm going to respond to the word job and say that I'm actually unemployable. So that's part of what brought me to what I'm doing. I don't have jobs. But what brought me to what I'm doing, I've been a teacher my whole life. Mm-hmm. When it occurred to me that tying my shoes, and in those days we did not have Velcro, I am dating myself, but when I learned how to tie my shoes, I wanted to show my baby sister how to do it immediately because it seemed like a helpful thing to know. So that's the first thing I remember trying to teach someone. And then I was always, when we played school as a little kid, when I figured out what school was, I was, no, I'm the teacher. And then I became a credentialed teacher. And I mean, my jobs were always around jobs, I did some waitressing and stuff, but it was really always volunteering with preschoolers and working in my dad's pediatric office. So it was always working with people and helping. And then that morphed when I had a brief teaching career after college. But again, that was, even though I loved the teaching part, it was a job. And jobs don't work very well for me because other people do the rules. And if I don't like them, well, we won't even say what happens. Let's just say I get out of a job. And when I moved to California and started this and that, one day, a male friend of mine, I said, let me take you shopping. You're so good looking. And anyway, fast forward, I took him shopping. It changed his life. I went, really? What would you have paid me for that? And he said $50 an hour, which was a lot of money in the mid 80s. So I lied. I've really been doing this for more than 3 decades, but I don't want people to think that I'm shriveled up and, don't know anything. So anyway, I started an image consulting career, which had almost nothing to do with clothes, meaning I'm really good at clothes, but I'm really good at finding out who someone is and then having that reflected, which is why I use the word congruent in my bio. I really want people to be seen the way they feel. I want people to be perceived, whether it's in their relationship world or whatever. But anyway, you asked me how I got into what I'm doing now. I've always been a student of transformation. I've always been interested in what is outside the box. I have a formal education, yes, grateful for that foundation. But for me, it was always the stuff that they didn't teach, that I didn't know that interested me. In my first personal development training in my 20s, I was like, oh, I'd moved from more conservative New England to San Francisco in the 80s. So, Anyway, so fast forward in the 90s, I found myself invited, still single, age 35, invited to a intimacy seminar because a guy friend wanted to go and he couldn't attend unless he brought a woman with him because they were doing a gender balanced thing where they had to have, one of each. So I found myself being told to, walk around this circle, one man at a time, saying hello and putting our hands on each other's hearts, fully clothed, but a little closer than in the United States. Well, I don't know about after COVID, but in the United States, it's always been a handshake distance. In Europe, it's the kiss, it's a little different.
Not everywhere in Europe. In Germany, it's also more like this, or it used to be. It's changing a little bit.
Oh, everything's shifting. It's right? Who knows? Or it's hello. It's such a strange time. But that aside, pre-COVID, it was the handshake distance, you know what I mean? And that was like polite, and maybe it would be a little perfunctory, hello, hug, but I found myself in a level of intimacy with men that I'd never met before, bowing in namaste, like we say before and after a yoga class, which is I honor the divine in you in English. Hello, I honor you. And then stroke her hair. All I know is that, and then women step to your right, and I'm in front of a man I'd never seen before. My life changed that night, Klana, because I had never had any hangups sexually. I'm grateful not to have a Me Too story, as they say here in the States. I don't have sexual abuse history. I had the 70s. That's when I'm glad I'm as old as I am, right? But here's the truth. I didn't know about a level of intimacy that might be possible. I hadn't been aware. It's what I didn't know. And I found out fully clothed, not in a sexual manner, that you could look in a man's eyes and it might be even more intimate than what you might do when you turn the lights off and get underneath the covers. And it was like,
so true.
What? Right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself unglued. I was sobbing. It was like this epiphany combination of grief and joy. Grief and what I didn't know, what might be possible. I didn't know what I didn't know, and joy at what might be possible. So I dove in and became the marketing director for this little Tantra group. It was Tantra Intimacy, and decided I would meet a man also interested in that. And lo and behold, 2 years later, at a party in that world in Northern California, I met my now former husband and dear friend, who is also a friend of yours, we found out. My friend, my former husband, Billy, who lives on Ibiza. So anyway, it's the smallest world of worlds.
Absolutely. We didn't know each other before. And when when I contacted Karen, we saw those similarities, similarities as well, but the synchronicities. It's this world is crazy.
Yeah, so I hope that answered the question of how did I get into it. And then the last thing I'll say is in 2001, Billy and I had a beautiful home. I was hosting women's circles. We were doing a lot of things. And a friend of mine's daughter said to me, she had just graduated from Stanford, which was one of the finest universities in this country, in the US. And she said, could I spend some time with you? I need help with relationship stuff. And I'm like, she said, and you're so easy to talk to. I was like, sure, bring your friends. And I planned a weekend, which ended up being 9 lovely young 20-something college grads. And I thought, they came to my home from a Friday night to a Sunday night. And I thought, what do these young women need to know? I thought about Klana, and I thought they need to know about men and the differences between men and women. They needed to know about sex and everything about intimacy. How do you say yes? How do you say no? Their bodies, what's pleasurable, how to ask, whatever. And they needed to know about money, which was lifestyle choices, because these are 20-somethings. They're going to be looking for partnerships and create a family. So I created it's actually a trademarked workshop called Men, Sex, and Money. And that just led me into this world of knowing what I'm doing. And then when I myself got divorced, it was way harder than I thought. Even though Billy and I were best of friends, my entire life changed. And I started finding myself in my 50s meeting a ton of other people whose life had totally changed, whether it was amicable or not, whether there was a money issue or not. It is irrevocably changed. You cannot go back. So to the way your life was, calling yourself a wife, a mother. I mean, for everybody, when we go through these big changes, we can either crumble and woe is me, I want to go back in the past. Well, that's not possible. So how about creating a new future really deliberately from the perspective of figuring out how you created the last ones. You don't do those mistakes again, but that you take what did work and bring that forward. So that's what I do with my clients. And I'm just I have to. My book, Sexy, Sassy, and Starting Over, is because I found there was not a handbook of how the heck to start over. So I wrote one. So that's kind of how I backed into all of this. And I'm a professional coach. I'm trained as well. But really, it was because people are hurting.
That's so true. And what I so love is when you talk about your ex-husband, it's really so full of love. And then you always say that you are best friends. This is so cool. Whenever I hear that, I say, wow, this is amazing, because there's so much war out there between women and men who are separating. So we need more women like you to share with the world that it can be a different way too.
And I think it can be a different way if we learn how to communicate.
Yeah.
And if we learn how, instead of doing this, where these three fingers are pointing right back, we say we. How can we fix it? How can we change it? Or how can we make it better? Really.
Yeah.
And it's not you're this or that. It's like, really? You signed up. You have what?
Yeah, blaming never works. And we need to take our own responsibility for everything what happens, and not always put it into somebody else's shoes. But this is how we were raised. So this is quite normal for us in this society. And I think it's really good that there are people like you and me and a lot of others in the meantime that are going to change that, so that people get an awareness that it's in them and that's their own responsibility and not other people's.
Right, but I'm going to jump on the word your own responsibility, because I want to make sure that people don't take that as that I have to do this myself. But wow, okay, I created that last thing. How can I recreate something new? And it's my own responsibility, taking responsibility versus the blame shame game is what I call it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
But also for clarifying, to go one step further, is what's wrong with asking for help?
Nothing.
And I mean, when somebody gets promoted to a CEO or president or whatever of a country, of a company, whatever, they don't know how to do that job. They know that they're qualified to step into those bigger shoes, if you will, but they're hopefully, we won't talk about the United States right now, but
they have
hopefully,
help. Exactly, they have help.
Hopefully they hire the right people, or they know that the secretary can show them how to do those things they don't know how to do, because they haven't done them before.
Yeah.
So
and especially for women, this is an important point, because we are so used and trained to serve other people that we sometimes are not really able to receive, but we are made to receive. Women are made to receive and not always to do. Of course, we need to do as well. It needs to have a balance. But when we need help, we should ask for it and accept it.
Can I tell you my very funny thing about what you're just saying about women and receiving? So if you forget, ladies, let me tell you the way to remember, okay? You've all seen dogs or cats that go into heat. That would be the female. That means she's ready for the male to impregnate her. And so she sends out, because nature does this, pheromones, smelly things that dogs go, where's Fifi? Oh, where is she? Where is she? And they can't resist it. So guess what she has? She has an innie. Yes, a vagina. She has an innie that attracts. And what does he have? An outie that produces. And really and truly, really and truly, really and truly, that's how to remember. Oh, we attract. Now, if I'm selling pens at a company and there's a man sitting next to me selling pens, the same pens, we should make the same amount of money for selling them. But chances are I'm attracting the business and he's producing the business. It's a way of being. And many times we hear about, she's a ball buster. Oh, that's because she's so. Look, I remember in the 80s, and Klana, you probably do too, if you were in business at all, when all of a sudden it was women, we were wearing business suits, but we looked just like we were trying to do it like men. I dressed a lot of the executives in Silicon Valley. And I was like, no, Stop. You're a woman. Let's get you in soft dressing. You're already a vice president. You're a woman. You don't have a you don't have a penis. You're not a man. So do it from a woman's way, or you're going to piss the men off.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened. But also, I'm happy that this is changing too. And some things don't happen overnight. It takes a bit of time or a bit longer. So, and I see it's all about the balance. It's for us women to go a step back more into our femininity, and not the submissive femininity, I mean. Otherwise you like that on a sexual way.
Yeah. That's a different podcast interview.
That's another topic, exactly.
We could talk about it, but we're not going to.
And actually, it's all about the femininity for the men as well, so that they get a little bit more their feminine parts to the surface, so that we both can get into a balance.
I think it's a balance. And I also think that as much as I call myself a feminist, and I grew up in the 70s, there's a part, I think, of feminism that did us a disservice.
Yeah.
Because it said we're the same. We're not the same. We're women. As soon as men can actually, raise a baby in their womb and actually give birth to it, then we'll be the same. Yeah. But we're not the same. We don't have the same anatomical, we're not the same. We should make the same wages, all those kinds of things, but we're not the same. And being feminine is not about being a feminist.
Yeah.
And you said the word, we should, I like the word allow. Because I think if we allow ourselves to receive, it looks good on us. Mm-hmm. Instead of running to open, I have to stop myself sometimes being brought up as you can do it, girls, but I allow myself to allow the man to open the door for me, because it's a way he gets to contribute to me.
I love it. But it's so many men don't do it anymore. Right. Some of them because they've never learned it, and others because of women like us who we
don't allow
by ourselves and don't allow it. That's true.
And we as women I'm going to use the word deliberately, train the men around us. And I do have male clients that I'm training in a way that, and I say that not about like training a dog, but it's educating them. But I'm training them to be more chivalrous. And I'm training women to allow the man to be chivalrous, to find the men, and this is not putting women or men down, believe me, men actually want to be our heroes. They want to give us the best orgasm. They want to give us the best, most beautiful, intelligent children. They want to produce the best date for us, bring us the best bouquet of flowers. Yeah. They want to do that. They can't do that if they don't know. An example with Billy, and you know him a little bit. So he was like, no, you're a designer. You have a flower garden. Your sister's a professional floral designer. Because I said to him, I would love flowers sometimes. He goes, I'm not going to get you flowers because they won't be up to your standards. And I said, oh, I'll tell you what, you know that flower store in town? She knows me. Tell them they're for me. He came home so proudly with a bouquet that was so gorgeous because she knew what I liked. So what did I do? I told him what I liked.
Yes.
If he brings me home Mexican food because he didn't ask me if I like Mexican food and I go, ew, but what if instead I say, oh, honey, how wonderful that you brought me dinner. I'm wondering, would you be willing to eat that? I'm on this diet, but find him right. He's my hero. He brought dinner. If it's the wrong dinner, I don't have to go, ew.
Yeah.
I can say, thank you for thinking about me.
Yeah.
Let's make a list of all the food I like so you'll know better next time in a good way.
Yeah. We just need to speak up and out what we want.
Right. But, and when you said about men tapping more into their feminine, we as women can help them by saying, how are you feeling, honey? You know what I mean? Like we as women can actually help cultivate that by being in our feminine. Because if we start getting in our masculine, then it becomes two boys fighting. It's like, it's not very fun in the bedroom that way either. You need a polarity, whether you're trans, gay, straight, you still need some polarity or it's not fun. You know, I'm a very powerful, very feminine woman. I need a man who's alpha. And I don't mean dominant, submissive. I just need a powerful man and is masculine, because then I'm like totally feminine.
Yeah. And then you
Otherwise, I think I have to do it, right? I have to go be masculine.
Yeah, exactly. And so everyone should look what they need, what they really need, and not what they think they need because they were told they need it from the media, from parents, from whoever.
There's religion, all of it.
Yeah.
School. Yeah, we get so we have so much impressed upon us as children, and we don't really have a choice about it. So in that way, we're victims to our environments, for sure. And I think that what you just said is really true, but we get to reparent ourselves. We get to re-educate ourselves. We get to choose to listen to this podcast or to other podcasts or to hire help if we need it. And we choose to actually redefine ourselves by finding out who the heck we are now.
Yeah.
What do we like now? I mean, I was just reading a story this morning about a husband and wife who had kids. She came out and then he came out. So she ended up becoming a lesbian and he became gay. I mean, they became gay and they were like, but they got married at 21 and had kids. They were like, whoa, meaning they still loved each other.
Love has nothing to do with that. I always say you can love somebody even if they don't love you or not love you, don't love you anymore. It's totally up to you. Love is one way. It's not that attached love that we learned.
And I think we can also love someone that we don't like. And I have people in my life that I actually feel love, they're relatives, but I don't actually like them very much. So I don't hang out with them, but does not mean I don't send a birthday card.
Yeah.
So they're not the same, love and like.
Yeah, thank you for that little discourse.
Yeah, and I think most important though is, will we give, especially starting over, Klana, do we give ourselves time to not just heal and figure out what happened before and how we were responsible so we don't do the same mistake again, but do we give ourselves time to go, who am I now at this age, after children, after that marriage, after a career, after breast cancer, which so many of us like myself have had? I mean, what is it how do we want to redefine ourselves? And that might require, doing a bunch of research, my favorite word, because if something's terrible, it's good research, right? And if something's good, it's good research.
So it's constant work on ourselves somehow. Even though I don't like the word work in there, but I haven't found a better one.
Well, how about constantly expanding?
Good. That's great. I love that one.
It's expanding to allow for more. Just and for me, it's sometimes I think it's this way, and then I go, whoa, wait, let's not deflect an idea. Deflect meaning, push away. What about like preferences? They're just preferences. They don't have to be absolutes. Well, I have to be with somebody who skis. Good luck with that. My age, shoot, people might have used to ski. Maybe their knees are too old. Meaning, I need to make sure that, yes, while that would be a preference, it's not a must-have. So, and I just use that as kind of a silly example, but if we go through life like this, we're going to miss all the other things.
Absolutely.
But, we're all programmed. What you were saying earlier, we learned what we learned, but we can relearn.
We can. I love that affirmation with the expand. Say it again, please.
That I think we all can that there's really room instead of contraction.
Yeah.
Especially after a lot of pain. It's really, divorce. I'm contracted. I failed. I consider my marriage totally a success. Am I still married? No. But it was totally a success.
Yeah. Some things are only meant to be for a certain time.
Right.
And then for your expansion, to use that word,
to
expand more, sometimes you need to separate so that everybody can find a new way to expand. Sometimes it doesn't work with that particular person to go.
Well, and it worked when it worked.
Yeah.
It's like David Deida. I like to quote him, Deida. He's a writer and a relationship expert in his particular thing. But one of the things I took away from his work, Klana, is he says that when we meet somebody and connect, we meet our reciprocal, meaning we meet somebody who is the same as us on some levels of evolution, of if you're both wanting children. I mean, you meet at a certain time. And then I always think some people are actually met in high school and still love each other and are kind to each other. I think it's an anomaly. It's not normal. But I'm like, wow, they're so lucky. Sometimes I just think if anybody's read Harry Potter out there, Muggles, sometimes I feel like they're lucky because they're just more simple. They're not asking all the questions. I'm not a Muggle. I'm like way expanded people are not the Muggles. And pardon me if you don't know my reference, but look it up if you don't. But I believe we meet at a certain level. And when Billy and I met, for instance, we had a great run together. And then at one point we looked at each other and like, ooh, we did what we were supposed to do together. We tried, and then, the therapy and coaching, we tried everything. And then we're like, it's over the way it was. So let's cut each other loose to find the next place of meeting.
And that's the way to separate in a very good way so that you can still be friends.
Yes. And sometimes it takes time to redefine as friends because you've got patterns that are so interwoven that it's not just like we're friends now, because you have patterns.
Yeah. I didn't think that it went like that.
Yeah.
I guess you were also.
He moved, 9 time zones away. That was helpful. No, but I mean, I say this, we are dear friends. We might even ski together this winter if airports and planes and ski resorts are, happening. So, but yeah, it's just, and we really do get to choose. And I think that sometimes we forget that we become victims to our circumstances. And while I think that in the case of like human trafficking, or when you're truly sick with cancer in the moment and you're dealing with, there is a place that there's true victimization, children who are abused, that's truly a victim. But as an adult who has the time and the inclination to be on this podcast like we are, or to listen to this podcast, we're in a very different category. We're not victims on the planet. We can choose to listen to this podcast or a different podcast or no podcast. And when we have the privilege to choose, that's huge. Exercise that privilege. Like in a democracy, people not voting doesn't even make sense to me. It's such a privilege to be able to vote compared to where some people are on the planet, or that women in this country couldn't even vote till the 1920s. It's like, oh my gosh, the choices. So I say, exercise your right to choose about your body. What's your pleasure? Nobody else knows what your pleasure is. But if you know, or if you get some help with someone like myself or Klana to help you get in touch with what's your pleasure, and then learn how to communicate that, life gets really good. And the pleasure meter goes up. And I don't know about you in Germany. I think it's kind of similar in Germany, Klana, as it is here. No pain, no gain. The puritanical New Englanders, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. No wonder I'm in California. I didn't fit. But it's like we grew up with our puritanical fathers saying no pain, no gain. And then what, you retire at 65 and then go have fun and you're too old to do anything? I mean, it's like, wait a minute. This was all wrong. So I say, ladies, find your pleasure and ask for it.
Well, Karen, that was a great last word, I would say. Thank you so much that you did that podcast with me. And I guess the people out there had a great entertainment and some insights as well as I had. Good, my dear. And thank you, listener. If you like that podcast, please subscribe. You will get a new episode every Saturday on all the platforms where you can get podcasts. And thank you so much, Karen, for having been here.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Klana. Remember to follow us on social media and get connected. Visit our website, conversationswithklana.com, for show notes and additional episodes. And if you like this broadcast, please share it with your friends to help us empower more women to live an authentic and happy life and make this world a better place for everyone.